So, this is Kal Kat to the Kal Katster, and I just finished watching again the infamous Robotech the Movie. And I thought that since we do Transformers Meet Robotech, it'd be kind of funny. I saw it many years ago in the 80s, and somebody has remastered it in HD and cleaned it up from the Laserdisc print. And some other stuff out that they remastered it. It's still a mess. I remember there was a convention in 87 or 80, I think it was 88. They were selling Robotech the Sentinels, the pilot. That's all they had on DVD on VHS. Carl Macek was there, and Carl Macek, that guy. And some other people. Walter might have been there too. Yeah, I think Megazone was there too. Yeah, so there was a convention, a toy convention, Star Trek convention, sci-fi convention. We got to see the Fist of the North Star thing that he was dubbing. That was the thing he was doing then. But Robotech the Movie came out in 1986, and it said in some of the blogs that it only aired in a few theaters, and the theaters that they were able to get information on it, they weren't they were like in the Midwest and like Texas and LA and stuff. There was one other place that aired it in the theaters. That was San Jose. 1 million people in San Jose currently now, as of 2005. But back then, a little less than 1 million, 500,000, something like that, 600,000. And yes, we had a theater that was showing Robotech the Movie, and Mark Charles and I went and saw it. I think all of us went and saw it. The whole gang went and saw it. It was it was ultimately disappointing because it wasn't really Robotech. It was really like footage they had mashed up from the Master Saga and Megazone 23. Oddly enough, Megazone 23. So yeah, that's kind of what it was. So yeah, well, what do you do with that type of story? Somebody just recently remastered it. Apparently, it is from a year ago with a remaster, but yeah, sure, watched the remaster. I did not. It was someone else on YouTube. So you can watch the whole thing. You can watch all of the Robotech and the Sentinels and everything. It's on YouTube. They're all free to watch. But yes, we do fan films over here. We've done fan films of Robotech meets the Transformers, Transformers meets Robotech. We had them meet each other. We've had Space Bridge and Bioships and all that other stuff. Timeline goes on extensively. We've been doing fan films since forever, since 86, 87. Those were not put up on YouTube, though. Those remained not on YouTube. The 80s through the 90s ones remained not on YouTube for many, many years. But the mid 2000s to late 2000s ones were put up. Transformers Meet Robotech. That was put up on YouTube in 2014 or so, 2014. Let's see, when did I put those up? I have a list here. Okay. Yeah. The Transformers Meets Robotech. The Transformers Meets Robotech trilogy, 3-hour miniseries movies, aired in the early 2014. So that early 2014, taking place in the year. The first story took place in. I don't need to go into that because this is about Robotech the Movie, but the story went into we did that in 2014, early 2014. Then we did Space Bridge, Bioship, and Endless Circle, and all that. 2015, the Endless Circle. I don't need to go into all that. And we've done all Transformers Mush in the 2020s, and Robotech meets the Transformers, the Sentinel saga, just a few months ago. So, and we've also done Star Trek and all that other stuff. So that's in a nutshell what we do. Yeah, and also this last year we released all of the original Transformers stories from the 1990s, 80s through the 90s. with the audio dubbed out and replaced with me commenting on the audio, because we had to strip out the audio. It was taken from music and stuff. So, and of course our Blair Witch parodies. Right, yes, Robotech the Movie is a mashup too, so there's a connection. A mashup between Megazone 2, 3, and the Masters. It doesn't fit in the canon at all, because even the rejiggered canon from the Sentinels saga, the Sentinels, okay, so Robotech, Macross, there needs to be a little background. Robotech was the Macross saga. Robotech was a Japanese animation series done in the early 80s, and it was the first part of it was Robotech, or the Macross saga. The second was a Space Cavalry Southern Cross, and the third was Space Climber Matsupita, and all those became Robotech, the Macross saga, the Southern Cross, and the New Generation, the Invid invasion. Right, so according to the canon, how it's set up, the Macross saga takes place from roughly 2009 to 2012 in an alternate reality after a second global civil war. And the alien ship, the SDF-3, crash lands on Earth. Alien FCF-1 crash lands on Earth, and is an alien force called the Zentradi chase after the ship and try to get it back. Between 2009 and 2012, there's the first Robotech War. So, the Macross saga. The Master saga takes place about roughly 15 years later, 16 years later, in around 2027, 2028. That's when it's supposed to take place. In the Master saga, you have a New Generation. You have, Dana Dana Sterling and all that stuff. Yeah. The first one was Rick Hunter. Now it's Dana Sterling. Rick Hunter, Max Sterling, and all that. Now that's the daughter. It's one of the kids from. But in the original, it was a completely separate series. Southern Cross was completely separate. Was not related. It was on a Mars-like planet. Liberta and all that stuff. A different planet. Where we get the space station Liberty is from Liberta, the planet. Also, in the New Generation, was supposed to be a different planet as well. The Invid invasion thing. So they changed that around too, made it the Earth. But the Sentinels was this series that was going on during it. So the SDF-3 was built and launched in 2022, and about 10 years after the Robotech War, to go to visit the Master's homeworld, Tyrol, the Master's homeworld, and figure out what's going on there. The Masters have already gone to Earth, though, so they cross paths in hyperspace. And the Masters end up going to Earth. And Rick Hunter and his forces are never seen again, really, technically. The Sentinels saga then sends the Expeditionary Force back home during New Generation. Several versions of the Expeditionary Force try to get back in New Generation, the beginning and at the end. Mainly Mars section and the Jupiter section. In the original story, it was literally Mars and Jupiter. They sent colonies, I'm assuming Jupiter's moons, not the planet Jupiter itself, but Jupiter's moons. Struck the fleets. And in the original Japanese one, Rick Hunter and the Space Force were not involved in Part 3, Series 3, at all. That cliffhanger at the end didn't happen in the Japanese version. Cliffhanger happened earlier in the Macross saga when the SDF-3 left and was never heard from again. It left earlier. It was the Mega Road that left earlier. It was not heard again. Until Macross Frontier found it. Apparently the new series from 2 years ago, they find the ship and it fights the master computer planet, and the two SDF ships fight each other. Of course. Yeah. So yeah, that's a Robotech background. So that's your Robotech background. There were spin-offs of the Macross saga called Macross Plus, which is not considered canon, which was sort of a rewrite of Robotech the Movie. But it took place like 80 years later. 80th anniversary of the SDF-1 being repaired. And it was like this weird sort of Zentradi invasion in 2080, way off in the future. And it was a master computer that took over. This singing sensation is a master computer, and it took over. And there was stuff going on. Similar to Macross Plus, which was done by some of the other Macross people. And that was the same idea there. There was also a computer thing taking over. Macross 2, it was the Meltrandi Marduk that took over. The females and Zentradi tried to use their master computer to take over. Their queen and do the infant thing. In Macross Plus, it was a computer that took over the SDF, remains of the SDF-1 and the computer thing, and took over the fighter pilot. The two fighter pilots were fighting through the whole thing, and then at the end they got a team together to defeat the evil computer. It's kind of the plot of Robotech the Movie, but better than Robotech the Movie. They saw it, and they're like, we can do this better in 1994. So, and then also there was Macross 7, continued the song as well. That was more from the vantage point of the K-pop band. So they had the Fire Bomber. Yeah. So, yeah, Robotech the Movie. It can't fit in the canon anywhere. Near as I can tell, because Emerson and the other ones are in it and they're live. Some of them die at the end of the Robotech Masters, so this story must take place before or during the events of the Robotech Masters saga. It's got to be during, because it's 2027 in the story. It's got to be during. There's a young hotshot who has who's basically in the McKinney books, the Jack McKinney books. They were a pseudonym for Meshach and his friend Armagama. They and somebody else. I think somebody else. The books. There's a main villain who is captured, named Andrews. B.D. Andrews is captured and taken to the aliens off-screen and cloned and replaced with a simulagent. Very quickly. There is the hero, the hotshot, Mark, and Owen. He's basically this other guy. There were from Megazone 2-3, and he's got the bike and everything. So they took footage from Megazone 2-3 episodes 1 and 2, and they basically grafted it with a Robotech Masters story and stuck them together, because there was a Robotech. Because after they did Codename Robotech, the hour-long Robotech OVA thing that introduced Robotech, they did a Masters one. So they just took that OVA, chopped it up, and made this out of it. That's what happened. It didn't quite work. Carl Meshach was later saying that he didn't like the new one at all. He quoted in the beginning of the remastered movie as going, "Oh, destroy it, oh." Actually, that wasn't entirely so, though. That's what Lucas said. He wanted to destroy all the holiday specials. He wanted to destroy all the holiday specials. And it was like, no, Meshach kind of liked it in 87, 88 when with that convention. 87. He kind of liked Robotech the Movie at the time. Yeah, he thought it was a great idea that he combined Megazone 2-3 and the other one. Yeah, he changed his mind later, but no, he originally, the late Meshach kind of liked it. There's the Masters claim that they have computers that are 10 times stronger than the Earth computers, more powerful, and they're going to download the database from their computer core in the form of the EVE, the Eve, which is from the other, which is also from Megazone 2-3, and from later on Macross, the Macross thing later on. The pop singer that takes over, the K-pop singer that takes over, J-pop singer that takes over the thing that's a concept in many of the later ones, including Macross Frontier and Delta. And Delta is the one with the ship comes back. Delta. Yeah, there's like a pop singer. There's always a pop singer, and there's a singer sensation thing. And the simulations and robots and things like that. Robotech thing. But the idea that the computers are only 10 times more powerful than the Earth computers doesn't make sense. Then they would be able to download the information faster. And why would they disguise it as the other computer when all they'd really have to do is... I know it was 1986 and they didn't know how computers were very rudimentary back then. They're you know, we didn't have these cell phone things and back then, you know. And didn't have these cameras, video cameras were rudimentary, computers were rudimentary, and it was like G.I. Joe, and at the time, you thought that a computer virus would explode the computer, and that kind of thing. It's like, no, that's not how that works. Or yeah, they would explode. Computers would blow up a lot, because on Star Trek they would blow up a lot. Even on Next Generation they blew up sometimes. But yeah, you can't have nice things. So the Masters come to the planet and they do this thing, and they're indirectly the hero guy who is this archetypal character. When they did Robotech the Sentinels at the same time, they were like, okay, we want to make this Mark Guy into Jack Baker from the Sentinels and sort of reinvent him as Jack Baker. And we're going to take this other guy named B.D. Andrews, and we're going to rewrite him as B.D. Edwards. So, and it's kind of got the same voice and everything. So when they did the Sentinels, they kind of have the same. It's very interesting. A lot of the Robotech voices are in this story, playing the other characters, the heroes and the villains. There's weird stuff in it. There's like, from Megazone 2-3, there's like an evil producer guy who tries to rape a girl who's a journalist. The journalist is similar to that in Robotech Macross 2, which is not considered canon either by the fans. He was a journalist in that one too, so there's kind of a similar thing there with the Marduk and all that. The computer thing trying to take over is similar to the Sharon Apple thing from the other one, from Macross Plus. So that came later. They did come later. Yeah, the Macross people tried to reinvent this movie because they liked it enough to, like, let's rewrite it to make it make more sense. They tried it twice. Macross 2, I believe, was... Macross 2, I think, was 91, 92. And Macross Plus was 92 or 93. A little later, 93 when it came here. 94 or 95. 95 was Macross 7. That didn't come here, but we managed to get copies of it here. Frontier was 2014, somewhere around there. 2012, 2014. And Frontier was, of course, just recently, like 2019 or so. 2018, 2019, the 45th anniversary or whatever, 35th anniversary. Yeah, so they've been doing Robotech for years, and we've also been doing fan films too for years. Yeah. So how does this strange movie add up? I know I'm kind of rambling about my own stuff, but yeah, there's not much here, with that story, and as a remastered version, it's kind of neat to see it remastered, but the story really doesn't really work. It's Robotech the movie, should we call it the Master Saga movie? The Master Saga OVA is technically what it is. Yeah, so sort of like how there's an Invid one too. You'll recognize it as Love, Live, Alive. That was the OVA for the third generation. And Love, Live, Alive, or Love, Live, Alive, as some would call it, was later taken up by the 2012 release of the alleged sequel to the Shadow Chronicles, which was a spin-off to the Robotech thing, trying to find Rick Hunter. Which they didn't. They had him briefly seen, and then they don't find him, and there's a black hole, and may have sucked him in or not. And 2044, when that story took place. During the Invid invasion, an Invid invasion, which in that universe, in that timeline, is rejiggered, pushed ahead a little bit. The Invid invasion should technically be 2040, 2039 to 2040, roughly around there. Not 2044, but oh well, they did it anyway. So So yeah, it didn't yeah, the Shadow Chronicles promised like we're going to show the evil Haydenites and all that stuff. They didn't deliver. They wanted to do Love Live Alive, so they did that. They got Cam Clark to do some redubbing. They got him back in the studio, and they just said, "Oh yeah, can you make this longer?" And just fit it in with our thing, even though it was like, no, it doesn't really. It's also amusing that the other characters sound so much older that it was ridiculous. Brooke Bartley, who was in her 30s, the voice actress when she did the character, is now 60 something, at least in the story. Now she's 70 something. She was 60 something, and she was like, man, she sounded like an old lady. She sounded like she'd been smoking for years. Did not sound like Brooke Bartley anymore. And she called Rand Sugar Lips, but it sounded like an old woman going sugar lips. Ah! Oh God, why? No, because she's like 70, so she's old now. Interestingly enough, in Robotech the Sentinels, Miria was recast by somebody else. So somebody else is doing the audio, other than the original lady. But yeah, I watched that too. But I figured that on the YouTube. But I figured we've done enough of the Sentinels. Also, our fan film decided to revisit Robotech meets the Transformers, and Transformers meets Robotech from to 2014, and do almost 10 years later do Robotech meets the Transformers, the Sentinel saga. And take us to the planet Tyrol, take us to the planet Hadon 4, and take us to the Invid homeworld in 3 epic 3-hour adventures. Altogether 9 hours of new Robotech. And it was awesome. Just awesome. Fan film thing. That makes this Robotech the movie think positively, like, what are they thinking? But we were just doing it for fun. We did not have anything to do with the remastering, and it's not us. We had to do with our fan film. Yeah, there's some. Yeah, Andrews is clearly supposed to be Edward. So yeah, there's just, yeah, you can kind of tell it's supposed to be the other guy, and it's so you're like, okay, is he the guy the guy that got wounded in Rick Hunter during the Robotech War? Is that because it's supposed to be the same dude? It's supposed to be Andrews is supposed to be Edwards. It doesn't match up at all. The other ones are alive. The Masters are first showing up as if they haven't before. And it's just like, how was... And they basically crib footage from the Master Saga to finish the story from the OVA. Yeah, so... Yeah, whereas Love Live Alive is mostly a reporter talking to Lancer. Lancer, yeah, that's right, yeah. That's pretty much all that is. And it's not very interesting. It's not very interesting at all. It's not the sequel that the fans wanted with the Yoon Robotech. Well, I gave them all the fan films, so you can see mine. Even though it's action figures, it's G.I. Joes playing Robotech. It's still very cool to see that. Yeah. Get to see that. You're like, oh well, at least that guy did it. His fan film, yeah, Kal Kat. So yeah, but that's this other one. Yeah, you can tell the archetypes of what the characters would be on the Sentinels, whereas the Sentinels people had already left at that point, like 4 years earlier. Yeah, so it can't be Edwards unless he takes off to go back to Tyrol again. I guess it kind of could be if he was. Yeah, the only way that works is that Andrews is Edwards, and that he and the others came with Wolf and them back to the Masters. The only way this would fit is that ship with Captain Carpenter that was in that one episode, that came back with all these people on board, and it dropped them off during the Masters Robotech War. In the first battle of the first scene, and then another ship came up to get the Matrix thing. It still kind of doesn't work. I know that a long time goes by between. They make it look like, a long time goes by in each segment, so it isn't just like, 26 episodes spread out over like 26 days. It's like weeks, so it's possible that this Megazone 2-3 mashup appears somewhere in there. But I think it's more likely a different timeline. and more similar to the Robotech 2 timeline, but with elements of the Macross Plus timeline as well, and Macross 7 timeline. Some elements of Macross 7 as well. You got the band kind of characters that are kind of like him, and maybe this Mark guy grows up to be Basura. That is entirely possible. It could be, but yeah. But yeah. So you have Basura. Yeah, you've and then Max Sterling is in that because he comes back. SDF survives, and it's an FCF 7. So it's different universes, different. It's a multiverse. It's a multiverse. Robotech is a multiverse. To start out with, it's 3 different universes stuck together as Robotech. So it's already a multiverse before it went out the gate. But it made sense. It was like didn't pander to kids, young men, mostly guys. And what's interesting is that Top Gun actually came out in '86, like after the Robotech stuff. So if anything, the guys doing Top Gun were inspired by Robotech to make Top Gun. So that's kind of cool. They must have been, because Robotech came out first. Macross was out in '83, Robotech was out in '85, '84, '85. So Top Gun '86. This movie came out the same year as Top Gun, and everyone went to see that instead of this. But yeah, Robotech the Movie, with a little bit of Robotech thrown in my little review. It's the Robotech the Movie is not good. The Masters Robotech movie is an if you treat it as an OVA, which it was, if you treat it as this is the middle generation's version of Codename Robotech, then it's salvageable as a clip show. If you just cut out all the Megazone 2-3 stuff and all the other extra weird, a little bit of Orgus, throw it in there too. There's also a little bit of Orgus in there. That ship is an Orgus thing, and then there's a fighter at the end that's kind of an Orgus. So that's in there too, and because had they used the 4th series, extending on Robotech by the same people as Robotech, Macross and New Generation, Orgus, Space Climber Cavalry Orgus would have been the 4th one. But they ended up not doing Orgus. So they put elements of it in this one. But it would have been Orgus, a space robot. Another acronym, like the Space Climber Matsupieda. Also being an acronym. Because I like those. So the timeline's kind of screwy. Timeline of my fan films is kind of screwy too, but at least it kind of follows the gears the stories take place, like roughly 2012 2014, and then 2015, 2018, 2022, corresponding to so that ending scene where Rick Hunter doesn't emerge from hyperspace and isn't found at the end of the Invid War was not in the Japanese version at all. So in the American version, but it being a sequel to the American version, Trans-Tech brings Rick Hunter home in 2014. In the story, 2014, and it ties into those Yoon stories a little bit because they were in 2007 when they came out. So ties into those in that the black hole they were near was a wormhole, and it sucked the SDF-3 into that into the Transformers universe, where they hung out with the Transformers for a while. It works. The new one clarifies that it's a slightly different timeline than the other one, because the Transformers changed the other one, 2018 one. And you figure, there was no space civil war in 1999, so clearly the Robotech universe has changed anyway. Something else changed all of that, and it didn't happen. The whole ship didn't even crash in 1999. It didn't crash. We didn't find it on Macross Island. Interestingly enough, the island they're really thinking of is Atari Island in Japan. And so there was a reference in the Trans-Tech series as well, with a Transit on Macross episode of the All Transformers Mush, holding it Atari Island or Macross Island. That's actually the name of the island in the Macross saga. The ship is the Macross, not the island. The ship is the Macross. In the American version, they say it's the island, but no, it was the ship. was nothing but cross. And they were thinking Mega Road, Star Cruiser cross thing, or Super Dimension Fortress 1, Macross. Macross. They were making a weird mishmash word out of something that isn't really, yeah, because, sure, why not? Yeah. Wow, yeah. So, Robotech the Movie. It was entertaining enough to sit through, I guess. It wasn't dull or anything. It's just kind of just what's going on in this. Like it was like watching a Masek fanfic of his own stuff of Robotech. It was like a weird. So in that respect, yeah, it's an OVA, it's a fanfic. But yeah, I know it was really boring. Was Love Live Alive? That was really boring. Let's just show a clip show with Lancer talking over stuff that we already know happened in the during the Invid War. Yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah, Cam Clark. Yeah, who will recognize? Who are the new generations will recognize from Ninja Turtles? He was one of the turtles, Ninja Turtles. But yeah, So yeah, from the cartoon. Also, the Ninja Turtles started in '87. So. Yeah, and that's kind of what the robot craze was on its way out. They came in with Transformers. There was actually a period where Transformers was not cool. Right after 88, 89, and then all the way to about 94 or 95, and then the Beast Wars started. So yeah. But yeah, for a while there, yeah. All because Armored Rama and those other guys over at Robotech, or at the Robotech, the Harmony Gold, decided that they didn't want to allow the Japanese stuff to come over here in the toys and licensing and do more of it. They wanted to hold that stuff, their own copyright thing, forever and never, that's why we haven't had a live action Robotech yet. Although the website is updated. The two Robotech websites are updated. I don't know who's running them, but they look pretty cool. But yeah, they released the copyright in 2020, was it? 2020, during the pandemic. Yeah, Armored Argama died, so they were all like, yeah, you can have the license back. The Japanese people can release Macross Frontier and all that. And people started posting Robotech on YouTube after that. Like the actual show. I do fan films. I don't use any of the footage from the show, because I don't want to get in trouble. But apparently you can post the show. Don't get permission first. Don't just do it. But yeah, they are doing more. They just can't quite get it together. It's having the same problem that Battle Angel Alita and Ghost in the Shell had in trying to make an American version of a Japanese work and to get actual Japanese actors. And they're having trouble doing that. So they really do need them, though. They can't just do. Doing a Robotech movie, you have to get it right. As the late Dwight Bentel, who lived to be over 104 years old, the journalism San Jose State, as he said. Well, San Jose State, gotta get it right. And they gotta get it right. They gotta get Min-May right. They gotta get everybody right. They can't just be some current person. They can't say, oh, Aquafina's popular, let's make her. No, she's not Min-May. Her voice is not right for Min-May. She could be in it as something, but she's not Min-May. She could be one of the Zentradi guys that spies. She could be one of them. That comic relief. That'd be fine. The guy that she was opposite in Shang-Chi in the Ten Rings is a little old to be Rick Hunter. So if they cast him, it would be a little old. But they could cast him as Roy. That would work. Dye his hair blonde. But yes, because Roy Fokker is supposed to be a little older. But Rick Hunter is supposed to be like barely 18. And Min-May 16. Because she turned 16 in the story. So Lisa Hayes is supposed to be in her early 20s. So she's a little older. Henry Globall's supposed to be in his 40s. Roughly. They were thinking Edward James Olmos from Stand By Me when they did that character. Back in the day. They weren't thinking new BSG. They were thinking Stand By Me. New BSG then decided, oh, we should have our Admiral guy look. Yeah, Ronald Moore was a Robotech fan, and he was like, I know, let's have the guy that reminded me of Global be the captain of the Galactica. Yeah. Like, no, that doesn't work. No, it doesn't work. He's like he's dead at this point. He's like old, yeah. But yeah, no, it's Global's got to be. You know, it would be a good Global if they really had to do an American casting. Pedro Pascal, the Global. That'd be good casting. Pedro Pascal. That'd be pretty good. Because he can pull it off. No. Well, no, it's going to be a long trip. I will, of course, play Britai. Actually, Britai should be The Rock. That's who should be Britai. That's Britai, The Rock, if you're going to do that. And Vin Diesel can come back. He can play Bedolza. But no, Bedolza has to be, yeah. Bedolza has to be someone, yeah, John Stamos maybe. Roy Fokker can't be anybody current. Like if you're thinking like Chris Pratt or Chris Evans, they're too old at this point to be those characters. If you want Chris Pratt to be in it, he could be Chiron. Because Chiron's about 30 something. But yeah. Be Chiron. That makes sense. Because Robotech is about young people fighting bad guys. It's about space and war and young fighter pilot and fighter jocks. Max Sterling and Rick Hunter and all of them should be in their teens and 20s. So, whoever the new actor. Max Sterling. Yes. Anyway, so I was rambling on about a Robotech movie that's just an idea. Yeah, and in the role-playing game in high school, I was, of course, playing Max Sterling. Cam Clark's character. Of course. But yeah, I had more hair then. It's a little long hair. But I was like a teenager, so that makes sense. I probably looked more like Louis Nichols than Max Sterling. Well, the hair looked like Max Sterling, but I had the glasses like Louis Nichols. Still kind of do. Fold computations. More letters than numbers. There aren't any letters in a fold computation. Just numbers. Yes. My math skills are terrible. So, yeah. Yeah, I was talking about Robotech. So yeah, it was more of a talking about Robotech and thing. My Sentinels thing that I also looked at again. I was like, oh, this is really cool. I like it. Toot my own horn. Yeah, this is great. But this old Carl Makek thing from '86. No, I didn't do it. If you're just gonna crib stuff from Megazone 2-3, just cut that out and just have them fight the Master's ship and blow it up at the end, which is the OVA that it was based on. It was like an hour, less than an hour. It was like 30 minutes or something. 35 minutes. Yeah, the Megazone 2-3. And Megazone 2-3 went on to do other stuff. It was completely different. It doesn't make any sense that he's suddenly in there. The animation is just slightly different enough that you're like, wait a minute, some of the mechs and stuff don't match up at all. Some of the soldiers don't match up at all. Like suddenly there's like these army guys that are completely different style and everything. Like, no, no, it doesn't work. And part of the reason that they changed the characters during the Sentinels, which they put up as well, is that they couldn't get the copyright license of their visages, so they made them look older and funkier. Yeah. As for the Tommy Wayun ones, drawing characters such as Syrah Merlene the Simul Agent and Syrah and all of them looking kind of like the same churburby hot lady with the big boobies. Well, she is an energy being that can change her boobies, but that's just silly. She wasn't stacked like that. She really wasn't. That would have been somebody else, Miria. But yes, but if you say that to Miria, she will kill you. Nah, no. But yes, she would flog you. Yes, But yes, because she's a warrior, stuff. It's a trendy warrior. You know, it was a really cool Robotech movie though. If you want to see a really cool one, find the unedited version of Macross Do You Remember Love, which is an OVA of an OVA from I think '87. The Japanese saw the American one. Oh, we can do this way better. We'll just take the idea of Robotech, the original Macross saga, the Macross saga, and do a movie that actually kicks ass. That thing is cool. Now you might find the crapped up version, Attack of the Bionoids, where all the blood and gore is cut out. But go find Macross Do You Remember Love, the original uncut version, because you get to see the gore. Different death for Roy Fokker, spoilers. Different death for Chiron. Different death for some of the Zentradi. Different Miria scene when she confronts Max. It's all so they stylized it. It's like, and it said that Macross Do You Remember Love is actually a story that is it's a retelling of the Robotech saga about 20 years later. So if you look at that's what's really going on is there that the Earth Defense Forces people, the UN Spacey people are making a propaganda film about Robotech and the Macross saga from their perspective, making it look cooler. That's the gist of the story. And yeah, it made it look cooler, you know, but made the Earth look more devastated and messed up and stuff. And it actually ties into Macross 2 a little bit. Well, it's some of the same animators. Macross 2 and Macross Plus had some of the same animators and producers as Macross and Macross. And yeah, they're the same people. And the reason that Macross, Frontier Delta do too, some of them. But Macross 7 looks like Macross Plus, because Macross Plus was the 4-part over here OVA, but 2-part over there movie, where the movie adds some stuff because it becomes an OVA, so then the production company said, Toyo and Studio New, and some of them said, you know what, let's do a series out of this. So they did. They ordered up 34 episodes of Macross 7, which came out in 1995. So, but they told that from the vantage point of the band, so they didn't have to film a lot of the space battles. They did cheap out on the space battles, even though they had stealth fighters at that point. And they would show very brief space battles that kind of were the same shot over and over again. But they liked the band. They wanted to show the band, Firebomber, because they got this Japanese K-pop band, J-pop band, be in it, the Firebomber. That's also cool. Go on YouTube and find Firebomber doing their live stuff. They did a live Robotech recreation concert. It's very cool of their songs. I think they did a couple of Min-May songs too, just for fun. Also, for the Transformers fans, there's another fan band called the Cybertronic Spree, which dresses up in costumes like Hot Rod and RC and Quintesson and Unicron, and they are hilarious. So you got to check them out too. They do Transformer songs, among other things. They've even done Pokemon and Power Rangers. But yes, yeah. And there's the covers band that does Thundercats and stuff like that. Power Rangers. But yes, there's a bunch of people out there. Various creatives out there doing stuff, doing fan films. Fan films are fun. Well, we'll see what 2024. We'll see about 2024. I don't have anything planned yet. You never know. And knowing is half the battle. And whatever. And Robotech the Movie. And I rambled on, but that's okay.